But a story that I think deserved more attention than it got, and that I tweeted about over the weekend as we got ready for the college football games to kick off, Serena Williams. If you remember the meltdown that Serena Williams had during the U.S. Open, and subsequently she tried to spin that meltdown by saying, "Oh, I'm a mom, I would never cheat," and then in her post-press conference, do we still have that audio, Danny G, of Serena Williams in the press conference afterwards? I know it was a little time ago. We'll grab that audio. But Serena Williams said that women were punished more than men. And she tried to turn her meltdown into this moment of women's liberation and this strong moment where she decided to take a stand against sexism. And what I thought was particularly interesting about that was the media in there, who are theoretically objective and being paid to render their opinions without bias, without any preconceived notions, clapped for her at the end of this statement about how sexism was behind this judging decision. And then it turned into, oh, this is an example of racism, right? Even though Serena Williams was playing another minority woman, and even though the chair umpire was a minority as well, somehow this turned into Serena Williams standing up against sexism and racism in tennis. And nobody actually looked at the data. Nobody actually said, you know what? What is actually the story here? Are women being punished more severely than men? Well, on Saturday morning, I want you to hear this audio one more time if you didn't hear it. This is Serena Williams and going off on the fact that she had lost her composure and got angry on the court, slammed her racket, all these things that happened in her championship match against Naomi Osaka. And here was Serena Williams in her post-match press conference.
I can't sit here and say I wouldn't say he's a thief because I thought he took a game from me, but I've seen other men call other umpires several things, and I'm here fighting for women's rights and for women's equality and for all kinds of stuff. And for me to say thief and for him to take a game, it made me feel like it was a sexist remark. I mean, like, how he's never took a game from a man because they said thief. For me, it blows my mind. But I'm going to continue to fight for women and to fight for us to have equal. Like, Courtney should be able to take her shirt off without getting a fine. Like, this is outrageous, you know? And I just feel like the fact that I have to go through this is just an example for the next person that has emotions and that want to express themselves and they want to be a strong woman, and they're going to be allowed to do that because of today. Maybe it didn't work out for me, but it's going to work out for the next person. Thank you, everyone.
All right, and then the people start to clap. This is the world we live in today, where you can't just accept responsibility for what you did. Serena Williams could have said, look, I made a mistake. I lost my cool. I'm a fiery competitor. And I shouldn't have called a chair umpire a thief to imply that he's rigging a match. And I shouldn't have slammed my racket, and I shouldn't have broken it. I shouldn't have said I'm not cheating because I'm a mom. I'm 36 years old. I should have known better, and I'll do better in the future. That would have been personal responsibility. That would have been taking ownership of your own actions. Instead, Serena Williams came in and tried to say that the chair umpire was sexist and that everybody in tennis is sexist. So Saturday morning, I get up, and this is fascinating. There is an article in the New York Times with 20 years of data about how women are punished on the court compared to men. And in the past 20 years of Grand Slam tournaments, that's 1998 to 2018, men have received 1,517 violations for inappropriate behavior on the court. Women have received 535. So men have received nearly 3 times the punishments for inappropriate actions as women on the court. So what Serena said is a total lie. Okay? I think this is important because very often you are being sold things that aren't true by the sports media and by the media in general. And I think it's the obligation of people like me to try to get facts right when we have big stories and big discussions. Look, you may not agree with every opinion that I have, but what I try to make sure is that every opinion that I have is based on facts that are actually 100% true. You may not agree with my conclusions, but I want to make sure that I'm giving you 100% factual information. And I want to ask you how many people in sports media that talked about Serena actually were willing to circle back around and say, you know what? Serena was full of it. The data here is 100% against her. Again, men, 1,517 violations on court compared to 535 violations for for women, like Serena Williams was alleging. It's just not true. There is no sexism on the court. What she said is a lie. Okay? She had an opinion that she was being treated differently based on her sex. The data for the past 20 years, when Serena Williams has been playing at a high level for women's tennis, has been proven here that she is not telling the truth, that her opinion is 100% wrong. Here's something else that I think is interesting. And I want to unpack this a little bit with you guys. When Serena makes that argument that she's making, you could look at this data and say, man, women are a lot better behaved on the court than men are. And you could argue, if you want to be a feminist, that the argument women should be making here is not that they deserve the right to behave as badly as men. It's that men should behave more like women on the tennis court and not get as many violations. And this is an important distinction that I want everybody out there to understand. We have moved as a society from everybody trying to aspire to being better to now when we blame people, we say, oh, he did something just as bad. Think about how often the arguments in today's social media era are not about trying to lift you up. They're about pointing to somebody else and saying, okay, I might have done something bad, but that person did something just as bad. And that's a fundamental devolution of what we stand for as Americans. I want to give you an example. In the civil rights movement, I say, was a uniquely American historical moment because civil rights protesters, white, black, Jewish, everybody who made the decision that everybody should be equal in the South, was about being better than the racist oppressors who lived in the South. If you go study the civil rights movement, you don't even have to study. You don't have to read a book. Go look at pictures. Look at the way civil rights protesters dressed. They wore suits. They wore ties. They were trying to be as professional as they could possibly be. Go look at the way kids dressed when they were doing the sit-ins at lunch counters. The civil rights movement was about exposing the disconnect between vile hate and the opposite, which was love. We are going to be better than our oppressors. I want you to think about that for a minute. It's a uniquely American trait to try to be better than someone else. That's ultimately what sports is all about. Your goal is to be better than the other person. Competition sharpens everybody's overall performance. Now, much of what I see is not people trying to be better. It's people trying to excuse their own behavior by pointing to somebody else or something else, and we fall for the fake. We get crossed over and our ankles break. Serena Williams misbehaved on this court, and she was punished for it. That's the end of the story. That should be the end of the story. But then Serena turns it into a sexism and racism story, even if there's no actual evidence to support it. And when the actual evidence that comes out to point out that she's wrong actually comes out on Saturday, and it turns out that men have committed triple the violations as women, nobody even hardly talks about it. because that's in the past. And Serena had an obligation, I think, and to accept responsibility for what she did. But she also had an opportunity to be better and say, you know what, I've got to be better. And in general, men need to be better too. What Serena was arguing for was the right to be worse. She was saying, I want to behave as badly as men do. And really, when you break that down, what she's arguing for is really sexist. Because her argument, when you really break it down, assumes that male behavior is the ideal. You understand that? That's an important distinction to understand in what Serena is arguing there. She's arguing, I deserve the right to behave as poorly as men do. Not that we should elevate our behavior on the court, or that men should look at this data over the past 20 years and say, you know what? Man, we behave a lot worse on the court than women do. Serena had an opportunity there to say, I blew it. I shouldn't have behaved as badly as many men do, and men should behave better on the court and play more like women. That's feminism, arguing we're better than men and men should be as good as us. Arguing that you have the right to be as bad as someone else is not elevating the conversation or advancing American society at all. The civil rights movement was quintessentially an American movement because its underlying goal was be better, and everybody involved in the civil rights movement was trying to be better than their oppressors. Serena Williams now is arguing men are the ideal standard, and I should be treated as badly as men are on the court. Here's the other thing. Why does everybody want to be a victim in America today? This is something that I think about a lot. Why have we so elevated the idea of victimhood? When I was a kid, the idea that you would ever want to be a victim was as far from my thoughts as I could ever imagine. And I bet if you're around my age, the same was true. I'm not saying that victims have done anything wrong, but I'm saying that nobody wanted to be a victim. You didn't want people to feel sorry for you. And you certainly weren't praised to the high heavens when you became a victim. And I don't know why that's happened. I don't know if it's a function of social media, that on social media, instead of accomplishing something, you want to curl up in the fetal position and point to somebody else and say, look how mean they were to me. I touch on this in my new book, which comes out a week from today, Republicans Buy Sneakers Too, which is the famous line from Michael Jordan. But being a victim is the very opposite of everything that exists in sports. Sports is the ultimate no excuses part of American life. Every single one of you out there has been on a sports team and listened to a halftime speech or listened to a coach try to psych you up at some point. Have you ever heard a coach before a game say, man, you know what? That school you're playing against, the kids are a lot richer. They're going to have nicer shoes than you. Their parents have better jobs. Their weight room is a lot nicer than yours. So there's no way, before we play this game, I want you guys to all know there's no way we can win this game. You guys are victims because you're poorer than they are. So no matter what the scoreboard says at the end of the game, I want you to walk by and point to them and say, you guys didn't win because you started off with a lot more advantages than us. That would be the worst pregame speech that was ever given. The only thing that matters in sports is your talent. It doesn't matter who your dad or mom was. It doesn't matter how much money your grandparents had. It doesn't matter where you go to school. It doesn't matter where you were born. It doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter what sex you are. It doesn't matter what ethnicity you are. Sports is the ultimate uniter in this country because all that matters when you step between the lines is can you or can't you play. and can or cannot your team win. Nobody starts off with more points on the scoreboard based on their identity. Everybody is equal between the lines. What Serena Williams is doing and what I see happening all the time in the world of sports, and I think the sports media is a big part of it, is the world of blaming is transferring to sports. Serena Williams misbehaved. She had an opportunity to own her misbehavior. Instead, she blamed the official. She blamed sexism. She blamed racism. And when you actually look at the data, and you can go search my Twitter timeline if you want to see this information directly out there, men were 3 times as likely to get penalized as women for on-court misbehavior. And by the way, that statistically adjusts still to a substantial degree, even when you factor in that men play 5 sets and women play 3 sets. Men are infinitely more likely to be penalized for on-court misbehavior than women. So Serena Williams' sexism argument is 100% inaccurate. I want you to just think about this for a minute. How many people actually shared the real facts with you in the world of sports or media? How many? Ultimately, I am of the opinion that facts still matter, and I try to get them right. You may not agree with the conclusions I draw from them. Everybody's got opinions. Everybody has different opinions about a variety of things in life. But ultimately, the foundation of what we discuss has to matter. And when Serena Williams gets praised for telling lies, I think athletes need to get held accountable for it.